Before we get into the guts of the Triggerfinger Pro, there are a couple of things that you have to understand, and this is how the unit works fundamentally. So you have three main modes. You have pad mode, which pretty much gets you into all the pad information. So if you want to change this note or change the color of any one of these pads, this is where you're going to do that at. You have control mode, which is going to give you access to the controller section, which is going to be the 4 knobs, 4 faders, and 4 buttons. And all of these have 4 banks. And then the sequence mode, which is going to show you on the screen all the information for the standalone step sequencer, which you can use without your computer. But we're going to hit exit and be on the main page. And you have this data wheel here, which you can push. And you have two options. You have the top option, which is to load or save a preset, or the bottom option to load or save a sequence. And I'll show you what the differences are. So a preset, if I load a different preset, it's going to change the pad layout and the control layout depending on what that preset is. So if it's a preset for Reason, then it's going to map it out to Reason. You might have other presets for like Pro Tools or Ableton Live. So that's how the presets work. And you can also customize your own presets and save them. Now, if you hit this data button, then you have sequences. So you have up to 16 different sequences that you can store and save internal memory of the Triggerfinger Pro. We're going to hit exit and click preferences. And here on the preferences, you have a couple of options. By default, you can choose which MIDI channel it's going to go out of. Also, whether the MIDI out is going to be with a USB and the MIDI jack, which is the MIDI out jack. So the MIDI out can just go on the MIDI jack only, USB only, or USB and jack. Then you have fixed velocity, so that when you hit this button, fixed velocity is going to set it to whatever value is there. So 127 or 100. Sequence velocity, which is pretty much going to be like when you program a pad on the step sequencer, it's going to be set to that sequence velocity. But you can access it outside of this preferences. It just happens to be there. You have tap LED. So if I turn that on, you'll see that the tempo light is tapping. So this allows me to kind of have a visual metronome, if you will, to know whether I'm on the beat or not. But we'll turn that off. And then clock. Now this is really, really important. Clock pretty much allows you to choose whether you're going to be using the tempo on the Triggerfinger Pro internally. So for example, if you're playing a set with a band and you know that your song is going to be 95 BPM, you want to set the clock to internal and then adjust 95 BPM on the unit physically. Or if you're using a DAW for production, then you're going to set it externally. Or if you're clocking it to other sources like other MIDI controllers or other sequencers, then you're going to set it to externally. Okay, let's go to more. Here on the preferences, you have LCD bright and contrast. So you can adjust the screen. And then pads. This is the sensitivity for the pads. Now, in my experience, the Triggerfinger Pro has some of the best pads in the industry, even a little better than the MPC Studio, which I believe have the best pads in the industry. Just the ability to do drum rolls and just the way it works is just really, really well done. But here you have pad sensitivity, where you have gain, sensitivity, and different curves. And this is linear, exponential 1 and 2, and logarithmic 1 and 2. And a gain of 5, sensitivity of 16, and logarithmic of 2 seems to work out best for me for my playing style. So that's how I like to leave it. And then you have night mode, which pretty much shows you where the downbeat is, beginning of each bar. So if I turn that off, you're going to see that there's nothing lit up here. If I turn that on, you have this small LED light that's at 1, 5, 9, and 13. Then you have tap average. So I can set the tap tempo to be 4 times, 2 times, 3 times, and I'll just leave it at 2. And I'll hit exit. Now let's say that you configure the preferences the way that you want them. You want it to, let's go to more. Let's say you adjust the contrast, you adjust the pad sensitivity, and you want to store those settings so that every time you recall a unit, those settings are already set up for you. So what you have to do is you have to hit save, and then you have an option here called Save Preferences. If you click on save, it's pretty much going to save those preferences for you every time you turn the unit on. But if you click on save type, you have other options to save. So for example, you can save all, which includes presets, sequences, and preferences. You can save presets. So if I make tweaks to the preset, I can save it onto any one of the 32 available preset slots. And finally, sequence. You can save your sequence to any one of the 16 available slots. Click cancel, and we'll increase our contrast and hit exit and exit. And here we are back at the main menu.